Good morning and welcome to Rising. We've got another great show for you today. Hope you are enjoying the Thanksgiving holiday, but Lindsey and I are hard at work. They're waiting. The turkey is out there somewhere waiting for us to be done.
What's your favorite Thanksgiving dish on the table?
Well, I like the turkey and the stuffing, and I do like that cranberry sauce. I like it all. It's all good food.
We are trying fried turkey this year for the first time.
You're going to have fried
turkey? Is that crazy?
Oh, I've never heard of that.
Somebody came to me with the idea that's a chef, and I said, yeah, I'll take one. So I'll give you a full report on Monday whether I liked it or not.
Interesting. Can't wait to hear that.
Coming up on Rising, a new report shows that many young people don't seem to be buying homes, as the average age for first-time homebuyers has skyrocketed. We'll discuss what all this means.
Plus, polls show religious faith levels have dropped in the U.S. and that Gen Z women seem to be leading the exodus.
And Democrats swept Republicans in the most recent elections in various states. We'll be joined by independent political commentator Stephen Olikara to discuss what's next for the party. But first, Robby, what's on your holiday radar?
Well, as I've been saying, happy Thanksgiving and rejoice because turkey prices are down this year versus last. As reported by the Washington Post, the average price of a Thanksgiving meal has fallen since the year prior. The average cost for a family of 10 is now $55.50 versus $60 per family in 2022, which was the costliest year on record. This is a good reminder that while the country's economic circumstances are not perfect, one can certainly argue that life is better under President Donald Trump than it was under Joe Biden, whose administration presided over runaway inflation that has come down, though not receded completely, since Trump took office. Of course, this good news is likely to fall on deaf ears of many Democrats whose frustration and blind fury toward Trump is all-consuming as ever. Equally annoying are those on the other side, the Trump true believers, who lash out at any and all criticism of the president, no matter how mild or well delivered. This Thanksgiving, I'm suggesting both of those types simply refrain from talking politics at all during your holiday celebration and dinner. Yes, every year around this time, we are treated to a barrage of mainstream media articles and complaints from young progressive lefties about how awful it is to talk to your older, more conservative relatives about politics. What if racist Uncle Steve says something that offends me? Oh no. You know that kind of journalism. You've probably seen plenty of examples. It's very, very tiresome. Of course, now it's more likely that Uncle Steve, or at least Aunt Karen, are the progressive Trump haters, and the younger kids, especially the boys, they're the Trump fans. But regardless of how your family breaks down, maybe it would be better for everyone if we just gave politics a one-day rest. After all, we were not meant to be this all-consumingly focused on politics all the time. Thanksgiving's a time to reflect on the origins of this American experiment. It's always worth keeping in mind that the founders of our great nation did not envision a powerful federal government in which all Americans would participate in some ceaseless battle for control and for say over how other people live their lives. Our American heritage is one of leaving other people alone to live their lives as they see fit and to foster harmony and joint cooperation when done voluntarily and when mutually economically productive. That is the tradition the Thanksgiving holiday reflects. Now, I've said this often on Rising, but in my view, it's just mine, the reason our politics has become so toxic is because the stakes are so much higher, which is completely contrary to what our founding fathers envisioned. They thought Congress would meet infrequently and that the executive branch would do very little. They wanted to mostly leave things up to the states. Today, the government is the president of the United States, who has vast powers that substantially impact the lives of all Americans. And so we have reason to be very, very involved in politics. If my side loses, your side will oppress mine, and vice versa. If Republicans are in control during an immigration crisis, it could mean federal troops deployed to blue cities. And if Democrats are in control during a health emergency, it might mean the feds closing schools and businesses indefinitely. We've lived through both these things. So people fight and they argue in very embittered fashion to not be out of power. It's tough, but that's the only antidote to this era of increased polarization. Shrink government and give the feds less power over our lives. Then we can go back to ignoring politics, not just on Thanksgiving, but for most of the year. Wouldn't that be great? I think so.
Bah humbug.
No, this is a positive vision for what America could look like. We could be less at each other's throats, Lindsey, you and I and everyone else, if we just left each other alone, if the government left us alone, if the government would stop harassing us and bossing us around, we could live in peace.
So let's talk about you and I, then let's back up to everybody in America. So,
Okay.
You and I get an opportunity.
Well, it's our job.
Yeah, no, we get an opportunity to discuss ideas and debate topics every single day. People who go into their jobs and workplace, usually a lot of these topics are off limits if you'd like to keep your job and not get in an argument with your coworker.
Thanks for that, HR.
That disagrees. And so they're going to use the opportunity, particularly with you and I, to talk about this at the table. I'm not offended by it, but also everyone at home should discuss ideas. In real life and in real time, most recently in the last month, a variety of people have been affected by our government, specifically from people who were flying, whose flights just randomly got canceled because air traffic controllers weren't able to go to work, to people who signed up for health insurance like we had to do this week and saw their premiums are going to rise next year.
Oh, yeah,
to
I
people
gotta do that still.
Yeah, you need to get on top of it. But to people that are looking at the fact that they haven't received SNAP benefits until maybe the day of or day before Thanksgiving, and they still want to enjoy time with their family and buy groceries. So there's real factors that people can still be thankful for, the fact that they are together despite these circumstances, but real opportunity to share ideas, but also criticize what you might think is going wrong or right about the government. I don't think that needs to turn into an argument. And I do also, like you, despise those think pieces that you really need to shun everybody. I cannot control everybody in my family. I got some ridiculous characters across the board on both sides of the aisle. That said, I still welcome the dialogue because sometimes it's humorous, sometimes it's over the top, sometimes I just have to be an adult and ignore, like not engage if I'm that fired up. And so we need to know how to have dialogue because that's part of the problem about why it got so like the tensions got so high in our country is because people couldn't even talk to each other. And I feel like we've passed that wave of not being able to talk. Maybe that was around President Trump's first presidency, and that's why Biden came in. People had Trump fatigue and just thought it was too over the top. And now here we are. The country decided that they would like this man to be president again. We're going to have to talk about it because we're here. And he won by more than a little bit. And so I think it's worth noting. Are you happy? If my family members come to the table, I'll say, are you happy? You happy with how things are going? You happy with these tariffs?
They're probably happy with the turkey prices.
The turkey prices, that's the only thing they're happy with. You happy with the gas prices? You happy for the flights that you can't get your money back on if they're now 4 hours delayed because President Trump wants to strip that rule and make airlines not pay you back, a rule that Biden put into to protect flying people and consumers. You know, a lot of things. Tell me, are you happy?
Well, that
and we can discuss it.
That
and,
rule they'll raise the price of the flight to cover that lost economic, right? It's not. That's just kind of directing the market in a way that's not going to make people's lives better. They'll just raise the cost of the flight.
Either way, people can have a time to sit down, and a lot of people, if you're lucky enough, are off work and can talk about what's working and what's not, and how they feel about the president they voted for. I saw New York Times actually did a great job because they went to cities across the country and spoke to Trump voters. Some of them said, I still wouldn't change my vote, but no, I'm not happy. And here's the reasons why. You should be able to express yourself. Just like if you wanted Kamala to win and I held people's feet to the fire, tell me why. What exactly did
I
she
would like
say?
to know.
What exactly
Tell
did
us
she say
why. Why did you think that?
I'm asking. So that's what I'm saying. If people are so passionate, and these are conversations I had with my mom when I was like, no, Joe Biden can't go forward. And she was like, yes, he can.
Really?
And I'm
Your
going
mom
for
thought he
and
was?
me and her were going back and forth. And she was like, what are the other options? The country will crumble. And I disagreed wholeheartedly. I think that we needed to figure out a better plan. And so those conversations should be had because then it makes people look internal and say, why am I just blindly supporting President Trump and these ideas that are making my everyday harder to afford? Why am I supporting somebody with a 39% approval rating? Or do I like what he's doing and have to say that these are things that I like? So I think that this is all good conversation.
I don't know if it's all good. I think it can be, well, certainly we want an engaged population. We're a democracy. People are voters. But I think it would be nice to be able to turn politics off a little bit more regularly. Take a break from it. Take a break from it having so much impact on our lives every now and then.
You can watch the game and talk politics while you're eating.
Watch the game instead, yeah. Watch the game and just talk about the game.
Just no politics whatsoever.
Yeah. A new report documents the struggles that younger people are facing trying to buy a home. We've been talking about this a lot lately. We'll look at those numbers right after the break. A new report from the National Association of Realtors shows just how much the age of homeowners has risen in the U.S. According to the study, median age of all home buyers is now 59 years old. For comparison, the median age around the turn of the century was 36. Even just 6 years ago in 2019, it was only 47. Man, the report also found that the median age of first-time home buyers has skyrocketed to 40 years old. That number was much closer to 30 years, dating back all the way to the early 1990s, but it's increased sharply since the COVID-19 pandemic.
As a result of this, only about 1 in 5 homeowners now are first-timers, which is a historic low. When the report was released earlier this month, it caught the attention of many online, and the struggles of owning a home seem to be something that people on the left and the right can actually agree on. Julia Carpenter, writing for the New York Times, says, quote, "There are clear reasons behind the trend. Younger Americans are struggling to save for a down payment as they stretch their paychecks to cover student loans, a rising cost of living, and most critically, high rents, which makes saving money harder. And even if they have saved diligently, a persistent lack of affordable housing inventory has left them shut out of the market."
And conservative commentator Benny Johnson took aim at the baby boomers, saying this is a generational betrayal. What boomers will have the backbone and humility to admit this, apologize, and spend their final years and energy to right this wrong. I hear nothing. A generation voting and regulating themselves lavish riches and closing the door on the way out. And I think there is something to that. I share the bipartisan frustration from so many young people over how difficult it is to buy a house. Now, we should caveat this in a couple different ways. This is a large country. The interior part of the country is more empty than if you're a young, affluent person who wants to live on the coast, wants to live in New York City, wants to live in California. It's very unaffordable there. It's not so unaffordable where I'm from in the Midwest or in the Sun Belt. Now, there might not be the same job opportunities there. So they'll say, well, I'm sure I would live there, but we don't have the same economic opportunities. The places where there's jobs in, for instance, the tech sector, that's the booming sector for young professional people who went and got college degrees. Well, that's in California where everything's unaffordable. The solution to this is in my view, we need to build more housing. We need to ease regulations that make it impossible to build more housing. That's everything from zoning to historical preservation to height caps to anything else, energy or environmental mandates. Those all got to go the way of the dodo. They're trying to protect the dodo. They have to die like the dodo so we can build things.
Another solution to all this.
Uh-oh.
Drum rolls, please.
Okay.
Mamdani, he said in New York, he's trying to address the housing issue. He's speaking to people to try to bring down costs and try to make the playing field even for people that want to buy homes or rent properties.
Convince people to charge less.
What are you saying? And if it works, then New Yorkers will be our test case. Give the man a minute. You might not agree with his strategies. We're all giving Trump a minute, right? I don't agree with his strategy.
Not only do I not agree with his strategy,
like
I
the
know
tariff strategy. I think
won't
it's a disaster. But if it turns out that we end up as the self-reliant U.S. that he's claiming that is his end game about this whole thing, that'll be brilliant. He'll go down in history as the greatest person alive with these tariff ideas.
You can't.
But Mamdani has a similar idea that seems a little crazy to people. And if it brings the cost of living down by convincing these owners to bring their costs down, and it actually works, then New York will be a test subject for a beautiful way forward.
I love you, girl, but that is preposterous. You cannot convince people to just charge less. What they charge for a thing is a market signifier based on what the cost of it is to provide that good. You can't talk them out of making less or talk them into making less of a profit. What you can do is offer competition so that they're forced to lower their prices. It's just very basic market functioning. No one will voluntarily lower the price of anything. They'll lower the price to compete when the supply goes up. That's the tried and true format.
Well, I think that, I was reading the same study, and in 1991, the typical first-time home buyer was 28 years old.
Yeah.
That seems like such a far cry from most of my friends. And like you said, I wasn't on the outskirts of the country. I came from Colorado right before I moved to DC.
You owned a home there.
And I still own a home there. I'm able to keep the home while I live here because I bought the home during the pandemic and had a historic low interest rate. Mm-hmm. In any other circumstance, I would be struggling right now trying to keep up with my home in Colorado and also live in DC. I think that it would be a bit much, especially given this climate with the cost of rent in DC. I was flabbergasted by these prices, let me tell you. Yeah. But I think that that's my example, and most people didn't have the opportunity to work. Some people were furloughed during the pandemic at that time. So if that interest rate doesn't come back around and prices are extremely high right now, when can young people find the space to live their American dream that they're supposed to be? And yes, in middle America, it might be a little bit more affordable, but the wages are much lower. Right. And the president's not making it easier to afford things. And so if people are frustrated, and a lot of people might have laughed at, and even though we chuckle about the idea of Mamdani being the whole Democratic Party, but taking away that the actual, the funniness of it to some people is a serious issue that he spoke to. The same thing that I told you why I liken Mamdani to President Trump is because whether or not either one of them follow through with these policies, what they did is talk to Americans, the economy, talk to people in their pocketbooks, in their wallets, and make that the core issue of what they were campaigning on. And so once you do that, you captured the ears and then the minds of the average voter. And so it really doesn't matter what you're saying, because President Trump hasn't made the economy much lighter than people thought it would be by now. People were complaining about it. But Mamdani did the same thing. He's saying what he thinks works. You disagree with it. But here we are. So he had the strategy enough to understand that was the
priority. With it doesn't work.
But even with the president, his strategies have not proven effective as he said they would. On the campaign trail, people should be feeling much better 11 months in. And that's what that New York Times piece that I brought up in our first segment talked about when it asked people who voted for Trump how they're feeling right now, is that people were like, you were supposed to do way more for my income by now.
Well, and for
you
my
promised.
generation.
Yeah.
We need to do more for younger people. Benny Johnson's point is correct that older people disproportionately have a lot of the wealth in our society now. They have a lot of control over the political system as people in Congress are older than ever. And you'll see, I've seen this on Twitter a couple times recently of it going viral of some older person say, why am I still paying property taxes after 50 years? Abolish property tax. Look, I'm all for getting rid of taxes, but are you kidding me? You bought your house for peanuts 50 years ago, and you're complaining that you have to pay property taxes? Of all the so I would move to just sales tax. I would get rid of all taxes and just have sales tax. That's how I would fund government. But income tax has to go before property tax goes. Property tax, you're paying taxes on property that you bought very cheaply that has gone up in value astronomically. We're running out of property. We can't afford to buy it now because the supply is artificially constrained, and you don't want to pay taxes on it. That is the least sympathetic I would like to pay lower taxes argument I've ever heard. And if Republicans, every now and then I'll see a Republican who are anti-tax people, and I get it, I'm an anti-tax person, saying, oh yeah, we should look at property taxes. No, 1,000 times no. We should just have no government then. If we're not going to fund the government at all, fine, get rid of all taxes. But if there is a government that needs to be funded some way, if you start with property taxes, you will just kill this generation.
I'm disappointed because I thought that at least in this very beautiful Thanksgiving holiday week with all the nice warm feelings, you would have laid off the baby boomers one time.
I can't help it.
One time, you got to lay off. These are people that we're going to sit at the dinner table with, have nice conversation. My grandma.
I'm the voice of my generation.
No, you can't blame everything. You sound like Trump who just blames everything on Biden. You just got to accept the now. What is our strategy forward? You can't just blame all the old. You're the reason why we're in this situation.
Biden isn't even a boomer. He's the generation before the boomers.
Trump and Biden are basically the same age, but okay.
Yeah, well.
I mean, both, literally.
Next up on Rising, newly published polling finds that faith is declining in importance in America's day-to-day lives. Don't go anywhere. Gallup poll published earlier in November shows that only 49% of U.S. adults say that religion is an important part of their day-to-day lives. That number is down from 66% in 2015. Researchers
at Gallup say only 14 out of the over 160 countries have seen declines in over 15 percentage points in religious importance over the past 10 years. They write, quote, the U.S. increasingly stands out as an outlier, less religious than much of the world, but more devout than most of its economic peers.
62% of Americans identify as Christian, down from 78% in 2007, and 29% say they're religiously unaffiliated. Axios reports that 15,000 churches in the U.S. are expected to close their doors this year. Public Religion Research Institute CEO Melissa Deckman says that Gen Z women are the ones leading the exodus away from Christianity. According to Pew Research, the decline is largely due to people shedding their religious identity after having been brought up in a religious environment. Interesting. I've actually noticed a slight uptick in the religiosity of not exactly my peer group, but people on the right, young people on the right, particularly Catholic identity. I think viewers know that I was raised Catholic. I went to Catholic school. I'm not a practicing Catholic, but I identify with Catholicism culturally. It has been interesting to see it come very much back into fashion among young people on the right, when I think people on the right were very evangelical. Christianity was the kind of religious expression of so much of the GOP for a long time, and I'm seeing it switch more to Catholicism, which is both Christian religions, but there are there are definite differences that are coming up a lot lately, even in terms of policy. So it's interesting.
I think Gen Z is like the rebel generation of our times, right? They're like shutting down their ideas about organized religion. They're also the rebel child in a way that if my parents did it, as we noted in this study, then they're shying away from something that they were taught. We see Gen Z walking into their employer and requesting astronomical starting salaries, and compared to like even my parents who were like, be happy of the job, work slowly for it. I kind of broke away from that for like, oh, here's what I would like, and argue that. And then Gen Z walks in, no, I want 100 grand. And it's like, what did you do to deserve that? Now you're being ridiculous. So I think there's a level of, when you're talking about breaking away, the younger people in our country are kind of just doing their own thing. They're kind of their own anomaly, even with voting. Some people might have seen their parents vote for one person or one party for years, and then young people are just making their own rules. And so part of that might be
But are all these young liberal women
why is it got to be liberal women?
Because that's the ones who are not becoming unreligious. Maybe they.
Why for you it always goes down to like, are some ladies happy? I think there's more than that for an entire country to sway away from religion. It's definitely more than the ladies. So
they're not happy.
When women say, "Oh, I'm autonomous," they want to like own myself and I don't want to be married or whatever they say. You're like, "Oh, miserable. Oh, I don't want any children. Oh, miserable." Why does everything come down for you to women being miserable? Why can't women just also make decisions like, "Hey, I want to do this religion. I don't want to practice this one. I want to be married. I want to have a kid. I don't." Everything is like, oh. Whenever a dating study comes out and we talk about it, your estimation just boils down to, the women are miserable.
I'm just reading the tea leaves. I think they'd be happier if they, if they got married.
But who gave you the authority to speak on what will make women happier? You are not in any way
I'm reading
in
their
that box.
self-professed unhappiness rates. I don't care what makes them happy.
The entire country right now is really not that happy because the president,
I'm happier than ever, Lindsay. I don't know what you're talking about.
I sent a pitch to do this story. There's actually a historic high of unhappiness in our country. And I wonder what it's attributed to. Now, if you like to just estimate that this is what these women are thinking, I'd like to estimate that if we're looking at President Trump's poll numbers and they're historically low and at 39%, and the country is historically high on happiness, and then the economy's not doing that great. Putting that all together might be the reason why people aren't that thrilled about the current state of affairs. So that's
maybe they should go back to the church.
And President Trump's certainly not leading the charge with getting people back into the church. I wouldn't call him the most religious president of our time, would you?
Well, he's well loved by very religious Republicans.
Does that make somebody religious?
I think he's.
Would you describe him as religious?
He's more of a spiritual person.
Spiritual, like you have the crystals and the rocks and an energy, a higher power.
Maybe like that.
Gotcha. After some big victories in this month's elections, the Democratic Party is looking to build on their momentum. More coming up on that. It's been a little over a year since the 2024 presidential election, and while all eyes have been on the supermajority Republicans as they work to implement President Trump's agenda, Democrats have had a busy year too.
Back in February, the DNC elected new leadership in Ken Martin. AOC and Bernie Sanders kicked off their Fight the Oligarchy tour, and on the Hill, Democrats caved to Republicans on two different budgets, the most recent of which came after the longest shutdown in American history.
Of course, the big news of the year for Democrats happened just this month when Democratic candidates swept the off-year elections, retaking the Virginia governor's mansion and winning big in New Jersey and New York City, where Democratic Socialist Zohran Mamdani was handed a decisive victory. But despite the big wins earlier this month, the future of the Democrats is still uncertain. Just 1 year out from the midterms, a new NPR PBS News Marist poll shows about 3/4 of Americans have little to no confidence in the Democratic Party as it grapples with party fractures over how best to resist the Trump agenda and whether the party platform should shift further left or further center ahead of 2026.
With that, we're bringing in independent political commentator and frequent Rising contributor Stephen Olikara to help us make sense of the situation the Dems seem to be in. Welcome back to Rising.
Thank you for having me back. Great to be here.
Good to see you. All right, Democratic Party stuff, that's what we're talking about. There is many Democrats who want them to go further left, see the success of Zohran Mamdani, the higher profile-ness of AOC as a clarion call to be more progressive, but then you have people like Abigail Spanberger prevailing in more purplish states for on a more moderate agenda. How are the Democrats, when are they going to work this out? How should they work this out of their agenda being more left or less left?
Yeah, I mean, as you point to at the recent victories from these candidates, Mamdani, Spanberger, et cetera, they are I think winning mainly because of voters being frustrated with the current administration, that they haven't truly felt the relief economically yet. And so we live in a time of affective polarization where voters are usually voting against the other side instead of for themselves. And so what that means is that the core issues that led Democrats to lose in 2024, I think, are still unresolved. We're talking about Dick Cheney today, who was kind of a symbol of interventionist wars in the mid-2000s, and now you see how much he was embraced by Democrats in the last election. I think that's a sign of how the old country club Republicans passed their membership on to the latte liberals. And now the Liberal Party, the Democrats, I think really have to reinvent themselves to be more working class and more populist.
I want to talk about the shutdown. Democrats made a decision. Some of them broke away from the party and decided to end it. How do you think that plays out for the party, even in the midterms? Because some people were looking to them in the party to hold firm and strong, and others were saying, we're literally suffering. Can you end this?
Yeah, I think this is a good example of the latte liberalism going too far, because the government shutdown really hurt a lot of ordinary Americans. You had 40 million people struggling to eat because of the SNAP benefits. You had millions of government workers going without a paycheck. And at the same time, you had the elites in the party saying that we should traffic in what I call Ted Cruz 2013 politics, which is to shut down the government over healthcare policy, instead of really looking out for ordinary Americans. So I definitely support the expansion of the Obamacare subsidies, but I don't think you do that during a government shutdown. And so I do think this is a key debate that's happening in the party between the elites and the grassroots.
What about Democratic leadership? Are people like Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries equipped to lead the party into the next whatever it is? There is so much frustration with them among rank-and-file Democrats from both directions, from a more progressive direction and from a more moderate sensibility.
Yeah, well, I think with Schumer, you see this issue of the gerontocracy. I think so many Democrats and Americans are ready to turn the page on the Schumer generation of leadership. With Hakeem Jeffries, it's more interesting because getting back to how the Democratic Party reinvents itself culturally, the party needs to do something different. I think anti-corruption would be a fantastic issue for Democrats. You hear John Ossoff talking about it. And Hakeem Jeffries, one of his 3 pillars going into a potential speakership would be anti-corruption. I've spoken with him about this. Something different, like, for example, can we ban lobbyists from legally bribing members of Congress, which is a huge problem. Left or right, I think, would agree with this, but would a new Democratic leadership take on an anti-corruption issue like that? There's a possibility that Hakeem Jeffries could lead on that and change the brand going into 2028.
I think everyone looked to New York and said, oh my gosh, Mamdani, this means so much. I think a lot of that was overplayed. But what is the actual Mamdani effect that the Democratic Party now has to grapple with?
I think it could go one of a few ways. I think there's a sort of ideological direction and there's a stylistic direction. I hope for sure that Democrats take some notes stylistically, because getting back to this cultural change, I think Democrats too long have been a party of we know what's best for you instead of we want to listen to you. And Mamdani's campaign, which I love so much, was about listening and not lecturing. And I think that is stylistically a way that Democrats need to go. Now, ideologically, we'll see how Mamdani governs. There are some parts of his agenda that are pretty far left, and we'll see how much he gets into governing and delivering results. This affordability issue obviously is the big issue now. If he can deliver on that, then I think there's some policy wins that Democrats could take nationally.
But he calls himself a democratic socialist.
Yeah, that's true.
Is that gonna, who wants, Abigail Spanberger has said, don't ever use that word again. And I don't know, Republicans are gonna be really happy to be running against someone like him, someone like AOC.
Well, certainly the Republicans think that, because the day after Mamdani won, they sent out a bunch of emails comparing people like my friend Zach Walz, who's running for a U.S. Senate in Iowa, to Mamdani. I think, when you think about some of the candidates that Democrats are recruiting, I think about Rebecca Cook, who's running in a key swing district in western Wisconsin. She's a strong recruit who's not going to be running in the Mamdani lane. She's not trying to call herself a democratic socialist. I think they're trying to define their own brand. But again, they got to do something different. That you showed the polls. Democrats have won these races despite their approval ratings not going up. So you need a brand and a message and a culture to the party that's going to increase that. I'm not sure democratic socialism does that.
Now, 11 months into a new president and a new year, people are wondering how come Democrats haven't come up with a strategy yet, besides trying to find their version of Joe Rogan or anything of the sort, that's actually realistic and taps into some of the reasons why they lost the election. What's your response to that? Why do you think that? Or what have you heard something that Robby and I haven't come across our desk yet?
I think there has been, there's this comical conversation after the 24 election about Democrats needing their version of a Joe Rogan, spending millions of dollars to attract young men back to the party. And I think a lot of that should have been laughed at appropriately. But now I think you're seeing a little bit more of a move towards let's show up and talk to everyone. I see that among people like Ro Khanna. I see that among people like Pete Buttigieg, who are going on those different podcasts. Even Gavin Newsom, who obviously represents more of the, I would say, the establishment wing of the party, he's been asking Joe Rogan to go on his podcast for months and months, and Rogan hasn't let him on. So that is actually a positive development, in my view, for the Democrats, that they're not afraid to go into unfriendly territory.
Real quick, on the Republican front, I mean, the big advantage Democrats have is that Trump is not going to be on the ballot ever again, and
we
Democrats, hope not. Well, but you don't hope. You hope not, because he boosts Republicans. Yeah. There are voters that turn out for him and might not turn out for J.D. Vance or whoever.
Yeah, exactly. So look at 2024 in many key swing states like Wisconsin, Arizona, where Trump won and the Democratic U.S. Senate candidate won on the same ballot in the same election. And the reason for that, if you look at the turnout numbers, was that Trump had a unique level of turnout that did not translate to other Republicans. Will that translate to J.D. Vance remains to be seen. J.D. Vance, although he's seen as sort of like mini Trump, he's a different kind of cat politically. I've known him for some time, and I'm not convinced yet that J.D. can get that same level of turnout.
Stephen Olikara, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Now it's about that time of year when millions of Americans will start their holiday shopping, but not everyone is planning to splurge on the biggest and best presents this year. That's coming up in my lens.
Lindsey, what is in your lens today?
Let's talk about this holiday lens. So walk into any coffee shop right now and you'll hear it. The whispered, half-joking panic of people clutching their first holiday lattes. Isn't it too early for this? Maybe, but the real sound underneath that question is a kind of financial dread, because this year, the holidays aren't just twinkly lights and matching pajamas. They're a mirror. And what they're reflecting back is a widening gap between those who can still afford to go big for Christmas and those quietly scaling everything down. Bank of America calls it a, quote, tale of two wallets, and that feels about right. Higher earners are planning to spend more. Lower income families are shopping earlier than ever. Well, because when your budget is tight, timing becomes a strategy. On social media, influencers are preaching de-influencing. Skip the new jammies, reuse decorations, hunt for secondhand gifts. It's not stingy, they're saying it's survival. And while we all love the tradition of the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, it runs headfirst into the reality of this economy. Construction's costs for a float averaged $30,000 to $100,000 just 2 years ago for one of those things. Macy's pays about $140,000 a year in property taxes just to store those giant balloons. Inflating them, that can cost at a minimum $500,000 with more than 5,000 volunteers, 17 giant character balloons, 22 floats, and hundreds of performers. You get the point. It's a whole different financial universe than most Americans are living in. Meanwhile, shoppers on Main Street are being told that by the National Retail Federation that holiday spending is expected to slow this year. Tariffs, grocery prices, interest rates, everything is squeezing budgets. And it's changing how people talk about Christmas and, frankly, how they talk about politics. Days before President Donald Trump was sworn in for his second term, he promised to bring down the prices Americans were feeling at the gas pump and grocery store. But now he's defining a kind of freestyle capitalism. Tariffs here, deregulation there, government ownership stakes in private companies, without, according to experts, a clear logic. Take economist Marina Mazzucato, saying Trump's policies are, quote, more like an idiosyncratic hodgepodge, adding, quote, Trump is not asking what the problems that need to be solved are and how we can have public investment to solve those problems. He's just kind of throwing money around and imposing tariffs and taking these equity stakes in dismantling things. And voters have noticed. Exit polls from the 2024 election showed that Trump's message on prices resonated deeply with people making under $100,000 and with voters that don't have college degrees. But in the November off-year elections, those same working class voters turned around and elected Democrats in every single race where they were running, from moderates like Abigail Spanberger to Democratic Socialist Mayor Zohran Mamdani. Their message? Affordability. Because something real is shifting. Wage growth for low-income Americans is at its lowest in decades. The top 10% of households now accounts for nearly half of all consumer spending. Nearly 93% of all U.S. stock is owned by the wealthiest 20%. And first-time homebuyers, as we talked about earlier, hit an extremely high age and not a good milestone. That's a warning sign. So yes, the holidays are always emotional, but this year they're also a forecast of how many people feel, or how people feel about their future and their finances. And maybe, just maybe, what kind of mood they'll be in next time they step into a voting booth. I don't think you can separate the feeling that people have about spending, finance, income this Christmas, being 11 months into President Trump's term, and how they're going to feel when they are voting. And I understand the elections earlier this month were not like a major midterm election or a major year where a president's on the ballot, but I think it shows you frustration because maybe President Trump overpromised and underdelivered.
Well, I like some of what Trump is doing. I mean, this is what I always say. I like some of it, and I don't like other aspects of it. You called it freestyle capitalism. The capitalist aspects of the Trump agenda I agree with. Not all of it is capitalism. Tariffs are not capitalism. Tariffs are the opposite of capitalism. The government taking an ownership stake in certain companies is as far from the opposite of capitalism as you can possibly get. Actually, that's socialism. When the government owns, runs, and centrally plans and manages aspects of the economies, including controlling certain firms, that's just socialism. Capitalism is, no, government's hands off, let the firms compete, the best one wins, let trade flourish, let us trade with firms in other countries. That's capitalism. So it's not freestyle capitalism to me. It's the opposite. It's managed trade. It's state capitalism. And state capitalism, another word for that is corporatism, and another word for that is socialism.
Well, the word that we use in comparing President Trump to Mamdani is a great segue because I see that you're comparing the two.
Their economic programs are a little
think that they're similar
for my taste.
That's kind of interesting, but I think when we're talking about the fact of the matter is that perhaps the president was, it's either one or two things. Either he was campaigning on something that he didn't plan to do because the prices are not down, or his policies are so erratic and break away from the traditional norms of the Republican Party that everybody is wholly confused. And it's not a situation where the whole country is suffering together because we're in some state that we can't get out of. It's a situation where rich people are getting really wealthy and more rich. And then poor people are getting more poor and more uncomfortable. And so when I say things to you about, and I know you're about to blow your top over this one, but he's building a $300 million ballroom and poor people are getting poorer and we're watching that happen. You cannot be frustrated when I say that he's out of touch as a president because he's up in that 1%. But he also of people that he's probably made richer within the last year with his policies that are not.
I hope rich people continue to get richer.
But people in America are suffering. And so what are you doing for the everyday American that voted for you? You can't win with only the rich people voting for you in any election.
The Democratic
solution
what's the
plan for the Republican Party?
Is just liquidate the billionaire, destroy the billionaires, take from the rich. It's never let's improve the lives of the $100 million. Like Elizabeth Warren tweeted something like, "You don't hate billionaires enough," or "Billionaires are afraid of this." This is the Democratic solution. They just want to take. They just want to steal from successful, productive people. They want to take their money. They don't. It's not about how can we uplift the poor. It's how can we hurt the rich. Because shrinking the inequality is what matters to the left, not actually improving the material standard of young people.
If the average American
I don't want to shrink the inequality. I want to lift everybody up.
Yes, but if we shrink the inequality, then we can also give people the opportunity to not feel like they're the worst part of society.
They shrink the inequality like this.
Yes.
Now there's very little inequality.
No, everybody's not going to be at the bottom.
And the rich people are a lot worse off.
Not going to be
and
at the bottom.
And the poor people are worse off too. No, I want to do this.
Democrats
I want to do this.
Right. So if a lot of Democrats are fighting for. You don't have to demonstrate this anymore. We got it. You guys want to zoom in? He's showing us again. I think that what they're. Go ahead. Do your little.
Well, that's on your screen. Wait. It's hard to do it. Wait.
Okay. So the point is,
We can do little hand gestures.
If we make sure that we are making opportunities for people that are, let's say, entry-level candidates or people that are low-income earners to earn a fair share, which is what a lot of Democrats are often fighting for higher wages and things like that, then that would mean that maybe the billionaire, 100 billionaire is like a 90 billionaire, but everyone down here is able to make a little bit more to afford groceries and everyday items. And so our society is not in a state of struggle. That means that the top 1% won't only be gaining all this money with they're not trickling down, because a lot of people say and have looked at the trickle-down theory as a failure.
No society that tries to make the poor people better off by mass confiscation or management of the wealthy people's riches succeeds.
It's not confiscation. It's asking people not to take advantage of the lowest paid workers.
You love asking people not
Yeah, exactly. Hopefully people will do the right thing.
I
live my life with a moral compass, so I'm hoping that people that are 100 millionaires could find an opportunity to take away maybe 10 of those million and try to give
it's not a zero-sum game. It's not
people
a pie that has a finite amount. We can create more value and more jobs and more opportunities by having the government be more hands-off. And that's what will improve the material living conditions of the poor or of the lower class when there's better job opportunities, better economic opportunities, when the prices of things go down. The price of things usually go down because capitalism is working, because people are competing to offer you a better fridge or a cheaper fridge or a fridge that does more and it improves your life. The fridge costs less than it used to. Cars cost less than they used to. TVs cost less than they used to. All those sorts of things. They go down in price, not because the government takes money from some wealthy person and subsidizes making that more expensive.
They also go down in price
because the market competition drives the price
They
down.
also go down in price because of how cheaply they're being made, because companies are so greedy that they'll go to other countries and abuse laborers to make them for extremely cheap prices, then bring them over here. Yes, there's been plenty of, we can talk fast fashion, we can talk about appliances, yes. We go overseas and charge,
those people are dying, literally dying to get those jobs. They want those jobs because there's so much poverty, they'd rather do them.
No.
Well, then it's the choice is, the alternative is starve. Starbucks is apologizing after its new cup got customers worked up into a frenzy. A Starbucks cup? I didn't see this. We'll be right back after this.
Starbucks is very, get it, sorry over the drama it seemed to cause over the cup shaped like a bear. The coffee giant released a $29.95 Barista cup earlier this month as part of its holiday collection. But it sold out almost immediately, leaving fans, some who even lined up before the crack of dawn, empty-handed.
Something that was meant to spread holiday cheer sparked chaos and even fights, so people were fighting to get this. A video went viral showing a group of grown adult customers physically fighting over the cup, and then other customers shared their feelings on social media. One person wrote on a Starbucks subreddit, "Shame on you, Starbucks, shame on you." And many claimed that certain Starbucks locations were only stocking 1 to 2 of that glass per store.
Now resellers have listed the cups for as much as $50,000 on eBay. Starbucks is now speaking out over the frenzy. A spokesperson said in a statement, quote, "The excitement for our merchandise exceeded even our biggest expectations. Despite shipping more Barista cups to coffee houses than almost any other merchandise item this holiday season, the Barista cup and some other items sold out fast. We understand many customers were excited about the Barista cup and apologize for the disappointment this may have caused."
If you missed out on a Starbucks Barista cup, not to fret, Walmart has come out with its own lineup of bear-themed cups that mimic the Barista design without the Starbucks branding, of course.
Go Walmart, that's smart.
Starbucks about that? What did they do wrong? They made a limited edition cup and you didn't get one, and sorry, too bad for you.
And I agree, this is like the Popeyes chicken sandwich thing. Like, everybody's an idiot that's getting in fist fights, brawling over things, food items.
This is like Beanie Babies, or what are those things? Labubus?
Yeah, I didn't see any fights over
Do you know what the Labubu is?
Kinsley has a Labubu, yes. My friend Tiffany got it for her in Paris.
So you can explain to me what it is then.
It's a very nice little tchotchke you hang on your purse. I don't have a purse next to me, but it's just like the decor. Kinsley doesn't have any
I remember
purses yet.
Beanie Baby. I mean, you and I are similar in age, so you probably remember the Beanie Baby craze.
Yes, I remember.
As well. Yeah.
Tamagotchis, all of the
Tamagotchi, yeah.
There's a lot of them.
It's all whatever. Who
But
cares?
this is a nice, people are really Starbucks fanatics. You know, some people go there every single morning, have it like set in stone. And
if
so
you want to pay
$30
you want to pay $30
for a
bear cup of coffee, this is just as good in my view.
Well, sometimes depending on the drink the cup you drink your coffee out of, it tastes better. Like it's just better taste.
Starbucks coffee is good. I like their plain regular coffee. I don't know who wants all that caramel and sugar
Oh,
frappe
me.
latte. Oh, you want that?
Me, yeah, I want the whole nine. Now they have praline lattes and all that. I'll take all of it. The
There's a million calories.
Well, probably. I guess I'm just gonna be heavy set. I don't know, like what to tell
We
you.
can't let. They'll
Can't
throw
be
us
having
off
roly
TV.
poly on TV. Listen, I think that everybody needs to take accountability. That's a cute
I
cup.
can't imagine fighting someone for it.
I do think that Walmart is very smart for making their own version of the cup because honestly, I'm always happy to never pay $30 for a cup. So anybody offer me a cheaper option, usually Amazon's my go-to to find anything like replica related when it comes to like tchotchkes.
People get really into these the popcorn bucket now at a movies. You go see a movie.
You can take it to go?
No, they do. They'll make a custom popcorn bucket, like for Dune, it's like the Sandworm, or for
Really?
the Avengers, it's Thanos or something. Like they've been doing this. You don't go see a lot of movies, I guess.
Well, usually Colin and I have this thing where like
Yeah.
he intentionally just wants to see it alone because I ask questions as if he's seen it throughout the whole film. So he
You ask
says,
questions in the theater.
yeah, he's like, you cannot come because I actually like the Gladiator. He's like, he also told my mom she couldn't come. He's like, or if you come, you have to sit away from me because I actually want to enjoy the movie. And you're gonna ask me like I know about it. So like with Dune, I just didn't get it. So I would ask him questions. And so I'm banned from the movie. So I haven't seen all these things because I'll just wait till it comes out at home.
I mean, I don't go see a lot of movies. I watch them. I see a lot of movies from home. I don't
Enough
go
to know that there's a
theaters to see
warm
lot of
Dune
movies.
situation for.
Well, that one I saw in
popcorn.
theaters.
So you like Dune then?
Oh yeah, I'm a Dune fanatic. I read all the Dune books.
Snooze fest. Yeah, I was.
You thought it was Snooze Fest?
Yeah, I don't know why they
read
keep
the
going
books.
with it.
I watched the original movie in the 1980s. I watched the miniseries on the Sci-Fi Channel. I've read even a lot of the books his son wrote set in the Dune universe. The spice must flow. I know a lot about
I'm really
Dune.
sorry to hear
I
that.
can answer any question you have about Dune.
I won't have any, but Colin is here today, so you guys are welcome to connect over that snooze fest. And Kinsley and I will go parade around the office. And
Are
say
you
hi
going to
to
take
everyone else.
Kinsley to see Wicked? Part 2 is coming out this weekend. My mom and I are going to go see it.
I quite enjoyed Wicked. I think I will. Yes,
Yeah.
that's something I might do.
I'm also big into Wizard of Oz lore. I read all the Wicked books and all the original
into
Wizard
that.
of Oz books and all that stuff.
That's better than Dune. That's
yeah.
better than. Okay, well, we got to wrap it up. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone. That does it for us on Rising Live. Look out for more exclusive YouTube content coming your way. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to all the Hills YouTube channels so you never miss any content. And for those of you who like to listen on the go, we're now available anywhere you listen to podcasts. Happy holidays.